Why do we get attached to people and things for happiness? We get attached because we don't truly see. We don't see people and things as they are. We only see what they mean to us, what they give to us, and what we feel in their presence. Attachment begins when the mind starts to mistake experience for essence. The mind meets a person or a thing, and if that meeting brings comfort, pleasure, or meaning, it records that moment as special. It stores it as memory, not just in the brain, but in our emotional system. That moment becomes sacred, not because of what it truly was, but because of how it made us feel. And so begins the cycle. We meet someone who understands us, listens to us when others don't, and slowly we start seeing them not as they are, but as an emotional refuge. We begin to believe that this person is the reason for our peace. Similarly, we get our first high-paying job or taste the first success, and the mind says, "This is it. This is who I am now." Slowly, we begin to attach our identity to it. We are no longer just a human being. We become someone's boyfriend, someone's girlfriend, someone's achiever, someone's successful story. The image grows, and the deeper the image, the stronger the attachment. We become emotional slaves to an idea of security, love, and success, which doesn't exist in the real moment. It exists in memory and imagination. The mind loves certainty and control, and so it uses memory to repeat pleasure and uses imagination to secure the future. It creates a fixed image of how life should be, based on what has felt good in the past. That is how attachment is born, not to reality but to a mental construct. This shows up in very ordinary ways. A boy falls in love with a girl, and she treats him well during the early stages. She listens to him, appreciates him, and the boy feels special. Without noticing, he attaches to that version of her, the one from the beginning. Now, when she changes, as all human beings do, he struggles. He gets angry, insecure, or disappointed, not because she has done something wrong, but because she is no longer living up to the memory he has in his head. The attachment is not to the real, living person. It is to the memory of a version of her. This leads to conflict. He tries to pull her back to the old version, and she tries to grow and change, which is natural. But the mind resists change, because change threatens the attachment. In the same way, a person might buy a new car and feel powerful, proud, or successful for a few days. That feeling gets recorded. Weeks later, the car doesn't give the same high, but the mind still seeks the earlier feeling. It attaches not to the car, but to the feeling the car once brought. That's why people keep buying things. They are chasing old feelings through new objects. The same thing happens in relationships, in careers, in friendships, and even in spiritual experiences. If someone once meditated and felt deep peace, they might get attached to that moment. Next time they meditate, they unconsciously compare. If they don't get the same peace, they feel failure or disappointment. This ruins the freshness of the now because they are trapped in a comparison. At the root of this is a deep misunderstanding that happiness, love, security, or meaning lies outside us, in others, in objects, in past memories, or in future possibilities. But the truth is, all of these are passing movements. People change, feelings change, situations change, and the mind, instead of observing this truth and moving along with life, tries to fix everything like a photograph. It wants to make a person, a moment, or an achievement eternal. This is illusion. A relationship is not a photograph. It is a moving river. But when we attach to one stage of that river, we suffer. We don't suffer because people change. We suffer because we wanted them to remain the same. That's why even love becomes painful. When we don't see people clearly, we attach to our needs, our feelings, our expectations. The person in front of us becomes a mirror to our desires, not a real human being. Then, every relationship becomes a kind of transaction. We love not because we see the person's essence, but because we are seeking something through them: validation, security, identity, or escape. And when they stop giving that, we say they have changed or they don't care. In truth, we never really knew them. We only knew our idea of them. This happens with success too. A person may become successful and receive praise, and the mind records this as proof of worth. Now the image of being successful becomes their identity. They become addicted to appreciation, to achievements, to being known. So they keep running, not because they enjoy the work, but because they fear losing the image. If the appreciation stops, they feel empty, insecure. This shows how attachment to success is not about passion. It's about fear. It's about needing to feel special and fearing the loss of that feeling. In relationships, the same fear exists. We fear losing the one we love, not because we love them unconditionally, but because our sense of emotional safety is tied to them. If they leave, we feel we lose ourselves. This is not love, it is dependency. And dependency always brings fear. True love can exist only in freedom, where the other is not a source of our identity, but a presence we meet moment by moment, without clinging. But most people don't want freedom. They want comfort. And comfort makes them cling, which eventually leads to pain. Look closely and you will see this in your daily life. When someone ignores your message, you feel hurt. But why? The hurt is not because of the message. It is because you had an image in your head that they should respond. That image is a product of memory and expectation. You imagined how they should behave. When they don't act according to your mental image, you feel pain. This pain is not caused by reality. It is caused by imagination. In this way, we live in a world of illusions, where we interact not with the real, but with the mind's version of reality. A friend cancels a plan, and the mind says, they don't care. But that may not be true. The truth could be they were tired or had something urgent. But the mind doesn't want to see reality. It wants to protect its attachments. This is why even the smallest things disturb us. Because we are not disturbed by what is happening. We are disturbed by what we think should be happening. We are fighting against the present moment because it doesn't match our stored pictures of how life should look. This shows how attachment is not love, not peace, not truth. It is an emotional trap. It's a cycle where the mind clings to images created by memory and projects those onto others and the future. It refuses to see the truth of the present moment, which is always changing, always fresh. Real freedom begins when we start seeing things as they are, not as we want them to be. When we look at our partner, our success, our past, and our future without bias, without emotional filters, just as pure observation, we begin to be free from attachment. In this pure seeing, there is no need to hold or push. There is just understanding. Understanding melts attachment. The more we understand the workings of the mind, the more we stop being fooled by it. When we see that the mind is simply playing a movie of images and asking us to get involved, we can smile, breathe, and step back. We realize that the present moment, just as it is without our stories, is complete. It may not always be comfortable, but it is always real. And in the real, there is peace. Not the peace of comfort, but the peace of clarity. Once we begin to notice that we are not living with people or things directly, but rather through our own projections and mental movies, the whole game of attachment starts to become visible. The mind does not relate to people. It relates to images of people, ideas about how they should behave, and memories of how they once made us feel. This habit becomes especially dangerous in close relationships, such as with partners, parents, friends, or spouses. We begin with love and curiosity, but very soon, attachment takes over. For example, a girl falls for a boy who pays her a lot of attention. He seems kind, interested, full of time and words. Naturally, she feels cared for. Her mind records this as love. She begins imagining a future with him. But slowly, his behavior changes. Maybe he gets busier, maybe his interest shifts, maybe life takes a different shape. she begins to suffer. She complains, "You are not the same person." But was he ever the same? Or was it her mind that created a fixed image and tried to freeze him inside that? The pain she feels is not because of what he is doing now, it is because he is no longer matching the image her mind created. The same thing happens when people say, "I miss how things used to be." What they're really missing is their own emotional memory, not the reality of the past, because the past is gone. It was never as fixed or golden as the mind now claims it was. This is where memory becomes a trap. Memory has its place when used technically, like remembering how to drive, how to use language, how to cook. But when memory enters the emotional space, it becomes dangerous. Emotional memory doesn't just remember events, it remembers feelings, and it wants those feelings back. So we start seeking repetition, not growth. This is why people chase the same kind of relationships again and again, even if they are harmful. The mind is not looking for truth, it is looking for emotional familiarity. Even if that familiarity means suffering, the mind prefers it over the unknown. A woman may keep going back to a partner who disrespects her, just because at some point in the past, that person gave her a deep feeling of being wanted. That feeling becomes the hook. That memory turns into craving, and the craving turns into attachment. She keeps hoping he will become that person again. She waits, cries, begs, fights, not for the man in front of her, but for the memory of who he once was. This is how we lose ourselves. We give our peace, our presence, our intelligence to memory. We stop seeing what's in front of us and live in psychological ghosts. This is not just about people, it extends to our attachment to success, status, and personal identity. A man who was once praised for a great achievement becomes addicted to that praise. It becomes his identity. If people stop admiring him, he feels lost. He may even become depressed. Why? Because his self-image was not based on being alive. It was based on being admired. He stopped being human and started being a role, a successful person. The same happens when someone builds a career and people applaud. That applause becomes their emotional oxygen. Without it, they feel empty. So they work harder, not out of passion, but out of fear. Fear of losing image, fear of becoming invisible. This creates stress, anxiety, burnout. And the saddest part is that the work they once loved turns into a burden. All because the mind got attached, not to the work itself, but to the image and recognition that came with it. This shows how attachment is not just about people. It is about any mental image that becomes central to our identity. The root problem is identification. We identify with things that are not truly us. We identify with our thoughts, emotions, achievements, appearance, relationships, memories, and roles. A man may say, "I am a husband, a manager, a successful person, a respected voice." But remove those roles, and he feels lost. That shows he never knew himself beyond those labels. His entire self-worth was tied to images. Now, if his wife leaves him or his job is taken or people stop respecting him, he feels broken. Why? Because the mind believed those things were him. The same happens in relationships. A girl says, "I am his girlfriend." That becomes her identity. Her sense of worth is tied to how much he loves her. So if he walks away, she feels destroyed. She doesn't just lose the relationship, she loses her sense of self. That shows the depth of attachment. It's not just about losing someone else. It's about losing the idea we had of ourselves through them. This is why breakups, rejections, or failures feel so devastating. Not because the event was unbearable, but because our self-image was built on something external, and now that external support is gone. So we crash. True freedom begins when we stop identifying with these roles and start seeing them as just parts of life, not definitions of self. Being in a relationship is beautiful, but it is not who you are. Having success is good, but it is not your essence. Being liked, admired, or wanted is pleasant, But it should not become the center of your existence. The center must be reality, the present moment as it is. Not imagination, not past, not future, not dreams, not fears, just the truth of now. But this is hard for the mind. The mind loves to escape the now because the now is unpredictable. The now is alive and the mind likes control. So it escapes into memory, where it feels familiar, or imagination, where it can plan and predict. But this escape comes at a price. We miss life. You can sit in front of a sunset, but if your mind is remembering a breakup, you won't feel the sunset. You can talk to a friend, but if your mind is imagining what your boss will say tomorrow, you won't feel the connection. This is the price of attachment. It steals presence. To be truly alive means to be free from mental noise, to be here fully, with no mental baggage. This doesn't mean you erase your memories or stop planning. It means you use memory and imagination like tools, not masters. When you meet someone, see them freshly. Don't bring yesterday's image. Don't bring tomorrow's fear. Just see. That seeing is freedom. In that seeing, there is no clinging, no comparing, no expecting. You meet the moment like a clear mirror, and in this mirror, truth is seen. People may ask, but how can I not remember? The answer is, you don't have to force forgetting. You just have to stop living in the memory. Let the memory be like a book on a shelf. You know it's there, but you don't carry it everywhere. You are not the book. You are the one reading, and that one is only alive in the now. In this clarity, relationships change. Love becomes free. Work becomes joyful. Identity becomes fluid. Life becomes light. This clarity doesn't mean you stop loving or achieving. It means you love without clinging, and you achieve without becoming addicted. It means you relate without possession, and you live without mental burden. You still have goals, but they don't own you. You still have people, but you don't control them. You still feel emotions, but you don't become a prisoner of them. This is true mastery. Not running away from the world, but living in the world without being emotionally entangled by it. You walk through the marketplace, you meet people, you do your work, you feel joy and pain, but you stay rooted in the real, not in imagination, not in memory, but in awareness. This awareness sees clearly. This person is changing. This moment is moving. This situation is uncertain. It doesn't fight this truth, it flows with it. And in that flowing there is peace. The human mind craves certainty, and that craving becomes the foundation of attachment. We don't just want love, we want guaranteed love. We don't just want success, we want permanent success. We want security in relationships, in emotions, in identity, in possessions. But nothing in life is static. People evolve, feelings shift, circumstances change, and even the body doesn't remain the same. Yet the mind, in its deep insecurity, keeps clinging to the hope that what feels good will remain forever. That hope becomes our prison. A boy may feel deep joy when he first finds a girlfriend who laughs at his jokes, listens to him, makes him feel seen. But very soon, he stops being present with her. He starts planning how to keep her, how to make sure she doesn't leave, how to ensure she continues giving him that feeling. His mind is no longer relating to her. It's now relating to his fear of losing her. This fear poisons the relationship. It creates control, expectations, and emotional pressure. The girl senses it. She starts feeling like she has to behave a certain way, say the right things, never upset him. Slowly, love turns into a performance, and both become tired. The relationship collapses not because they didn't love each other, but because attachment made love heavy. The same mind structure shows up in material things. A man may buy a new car and feel proud. For a while he enjoys the smooth drive, the compliments, the sense of achievement. But very soon he becomes anxious about scratches, about fuel prices, about other people touching it. His joy turns into fear, fear of losing what he owns. The car has not changed, but his mind is no longer enjoying it. It is now protecting, defending, worrying. This is the curse of ownership. When you say, "This is mine," you don't just take responsibility. You take emotional burden. Whether it's a phone, a house, a person, a career, once the mind says mine, it starts fearing loss. And that fear brings suffering. Look at how people behave after buying something expensive. There is less joy and more tension. If someone touches their new phone, they panic. If the dress gets stained, they snap. Why? Because the mind has created an attachment, and every small damage to the thing feels like damage to their identity. We say we own things, but in truth, things start owning our peace. Nowhere is this more visible than in the way people attach to their own ideas of success. A student may top his class once, and the praise he receives becomes his new standard. From that point on, he cannot tolerate anything less than perfection. Every small failure now becomes a threat to his self-worth. He studies not with joy, but with fear of falling. He cannot rest. He cannot enjoy the process. He becomes obsessed with results, rankings, and comparisons. His life becomes a race. And if someone else performs better, he feels threatened. Not because he has lost anything in real terms, but because the image in his mind has cracked. That image, that I must always be the best, is his real master. He no longer lives in the present moment. He lives in a self-created prison of expectation. This same mechanism plays out in careers. A woman gets promoted and becomes known as a top performer. Now she cannot allow herself to relax. Even a small mistake haunts her. Her mind says, "I must maintain this image." Her creativity suffers, her body starts burning out. She is no longer working, she is surviving. Her success has become her anxiety. This is what happens when the mind forgets the difference between action and identity. You can act as a teacher, a manager, a leader. But the moment you say, "This is who I am," you become trapped. Identity turns roles into cages. The more fixed your image, the more fragile your peace. A person who says, "I am a kind person," will suffer deeply when someone accuses them of being selfish. A person who says, "I am smart," will feel devastated if they make a mistake. Why? Because they were not living, they were maintaining an identity. This identity is built from memory, childhood praise, teenage success, romantic feedback, professional titles. All these create layers of mental self-image, and this image becomes our lens. We start looking at life through it. If something matches our image, we feel safe. If something challenges it, we feel attacked. But life doesn't care about our images. It flows naturally, unpredictably, truthfully. And when reality clashes with image, suffering begins. So the real freedom is not in protecting the image, but in dropping it. Relationships become deeply beautiful when we stop relating through memory and start relating through presence. A husband may say to his wife, "You have changed." But what he really means is, "You no longer match the memory I carry of you." This is not love. This is attachment to a mental image. True relationship begins when you meet the person fresh, without the burden of yesterday. That means not saying, "You always do this," or "You never listen." It means observing what is happening now without dragging the past into every moment. A child misbehaves one day, and the parent labels him as naughty. From then on, every small act is judged through that label. The parent is no longer seeing the child, they are seeing a memory. This damages trust. The child may grow silent or rebellious, not because of who he is, but because of the way he is being seen. This shows how memory, when used unconsciously, becomes violence. It blocks perception. It reduces living beings into fixed concepts. And the tragedy is that we do this in the name of love. To love someone is not to fix them in your mind. It is to let them change. It is to allow space for growth, mistakes, silence, transformation. If someone was gentle yesterday and is angry today, see their anger, but don't make it their identity. If someone was close yesterday and is distant today, see their distance, but don't call it betrayal. The more you stay with what is, the less you suffer. The more you demand that life behave like your image, the more you bleed. Most people are not hurt by others. They are hurt by their own expectations. A man expects his friend to always be available. One day the friend is busy. The man feels rejected. But was he rejected? Or did his expectation not match reality? This is how the mind confuses hurt with truth. Truth is simple. Someone is busy. That's it. But the mind adds layers. He doesn't care. I'm not important. Something is wrong. These are stories. And these stories are not based on facts. They are based on past experiences and fears. They are based on the mind's inability to see clearly. Clarity comes from dropping imagination. Most of our pain is not caused by what is happening, but by what we imagine is happening or will happen. You get a message from someone saying, "We need to talk." Instantly, the mind races. What did I do wrong? Is she upset? Am I going to be dumped, fired, accused? Hours pass in anxiety. When the conversation finally happens, it turns out to be something simple. But your mind lived a whole drama before reality arrived. This shows how imagination hijacks peace. We live in futures that haven't happened, reacting to situations that don't even exist yet. And then we say, life is stressful. Life is rarely the problem. The mind's stories are the problem. If we could respond only to what is real, our suffering would drop by 90%. But this requires awareness, to catch the mind when it jumps, to ask, is this real or am I imagining? And to come back to now. To what you see, hear, sense without the commentary. This is not dullness. This is freedom. This clarity also transforms the way we relate to our past. Many people are living as victims of old pain. Someone cheated, someone died, someone betrayed, someone failed. The mind carries these events like heavy stones. Every new relationship, every new opportunity is filtered through this weight. A person who was once abandoned may never fully trust again. Not because the new partner is untrustworthy, but because the past still haunts. The memory has become the present, and this is dangerous. Memory must be used as reference, not residence. If you live in memory, you cannot live now. If you define today by what happened yesterday, you are not alive. You are repeating history. But here's the secret. Memory has no power unless you believe it. The past cannot touch you unless you carry it. Drop the belief. Drop the identification. See the past as a movie. It happened. It's over. It has no claws unless you hold it tightly. This is not denial. This is intelligence. To learn from pain, but not live in it. So what does it mean to live in the present? It means seeing clearly. It means being with what is happening without mental interference. You eat, you taste, you walk, you feel, you listen, you hear. Simple acts become sacred. Life is no longer a problem to be solved. It is an experience to be lived. You stop fighting what is and start flowing with it. Even sadness becomes soft. Even failure becomes a teacher. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start seeing, what is this showing me? This shift is the beginning of maturity. You are no longer a victim. You are a witness. And this witness is the real you. Not the thinker, not the feeler, not the doer, but the watcher. The one who sees the thoughts, the emotions, the actions. And from this place, you don't need to detach forcefully. You don't need to push people away. Detachment happens naturally. Not because you don't care, but because you care with clarity. You love without owning. You act without clinging. You live without fear. Life becomes beautiful the moment we stop resisting what is real. When the mind is no longer obsessed with controlling, fixing, or projecting, then even the most ordinary moment shines with depth. But we rarely allow that. We are too busy living in a psychological time that doesn't exist. Either we are running behind memories trying to fix the past, or we are racing ahead, anxious about a future that hasn't arrived. And in doing so, We miss the only reality there is, the present. The present moment is not just a philosophical idea. It is the only space where life actually happens. When we meet people, we don't meet them. We meet our expectations of them. When we talk, we don't listen. We filter every word through our mental biases. When we work, we are not fully there. We are lost in inner commentary. This is not living. This is reacting. It's like watching a movie while wearing foggy glasses. You see something, but never clearly. The moment you wipe the fog, that is your beliefs, memories, assumptions, you start seeing people and things as they truly are. That clarity is not cold. It is compassion in its highest form, because now you are not reacting to what you think someone is. You are meeting them freshly, without the burden of your mind. When we don't see clearly, we suffer in invisible ways. For example, someone ignores your message. The fact is simple. They didn't respond. But the mind immediately adds imagination. They don't care about me. I must have done something wrong. They are talking to someone else. This chain of thought creates inner chaos. You feel hurt, angry, rejected. But did the person do any of that? Number your mind did. Your memories and insecurities filled the silence with noise. This is the trap of psychological conditioning. We live through our interpretations, not through the event itself. Someone praises us and we feel worthy. Someone criticizes us and we feel destroyed. But that shows we don't know who we are. We're like a mirror, trying to find itself in someone else's reflection. So long as you look outward for validation, peace will remain unstable. But when you look inward and simply observe without judgment, you begin to realize you are not the labels people gave you. You are not the success or the failure. You are not the identity you fight to protect. You are the awareness behind all that. And that awareness is always free. Real freedom is not the ability to do what you want. It is the ability to be untouched by what happens. A free mind doesn't mean you stop loving or working or desiring. It means you no longer depend on outcomes for your happiness. You love fully but without fear of loss. You work with passion but without becoming a slave to results. You enjoy things but without letting them define your peace. That's when relationships become light, not heavy. You don't cling, you don't control, you don't manipulate. You allow space. And this space is love. When there's no space, love becomes suffocation. In most relationships, people are not loving each other. They're holding each other hostage to their inner emptiness. A man may say, "You complete me," but that means he was incomplete before and now he's dependent. That's not love. That's emotional dependency. True love says, "I am whole and I meet you as a whole. I don't need you, but I celebrate your presence." That love is rare because it requires inner clarity. And clarity comes when you are not distracted by the past or the future. Memory plays a subtle but powerful role in attachment. It turns moments into identity. A woman may remember how her ex once made her feel special. That memory becomes an ideal, and every new partner is compared to it. No one matches the fantasy. She keeps chasing the feeling, not realizing that the memory was not the person. It was a moment in time, shaped by mood, context, hormones, and unconscious expectations. The mind edits out the pain and highlights only the pleasure. This distorted memory becomes the new standard, and anything less feels like a loss. This is how people ruin perfectly good relationships, by comparing them with imagined perfection. They're not seeing what's present. They're living with ghosts. Similarly, a man who once succeeded in business might carry that memory as his identity. When he fails later, he feels shattered. Not because the failure is unbearable, but because his self-image is broken. This shows how deeply we identify with mental pictures. And all identification brings fear. Because what the mind creates, the mind must also protect. And protection always creates stress. The most dangerous identifications are the ones we don't notice. A woman may not say, "I am my beauty," but her entire sense of worth may depend on compliments and attention. The day someone calls her unattractive, she crumbles inside. A man may not say, "I am my job," but when he loses it, he feels meaningless. These subtle attachments are the real roots of suffering, because they are unconscious. They shape how we dress, speak, act, even love. And the only way to end their hold is to become aware of them. You must ask, who am I without my story? Without my job, body, relationships, money, status? Who am I? Most people are terrified of this question because they've never lived without their labels. But only when you ask it sincerely can you begin to see beyond the surface. You are not the roles you play. You are the one who is aware of them. When that becomes clear, the fear of loss disappears. You can still enjoy things, but without becoming addicted to them. You can still have relationships, but without becoming blind in them. This clarity also transforms how we deal with pain. Pain is inevitable. Loss, death, failure, disappointment, they come to all. But suffering is optional. Pain comes from life. Suffering comes from the mind's resistance to life. You lose a loved one, there is grief. But if the mind keeps saying, "This shouldn't have happened," or "I can't live without them," then pain turns into endless suffering. Similarly, if someone rejects you, you feel hurt. But if your mind says, "I must not be worthy," or "No one will ever love me again," then you are torturing yourself. The event is one thing. The story you build around it is another. Freedom comes when you stop adding stories. When you feel pain, let it pass through you. Don't fight it. Don't label it. Don't dramatize it. Just be with it. And you will find that pain, when allowed, is like a wave. It rises, peaks, and falls. But suffering, when fed by thought, is like a fire. It keeps burning as long as you keep adding fuel. Stop feeding the fire and the mind becomes quiet. This quiet mind is not dull. It is sharp, alive, and deeply intelligent. It doesn't mean thoughts stop. It means you stop being dragged by them. You see a thought rise, and you let it pass. You don't jump in. You don't argue with it. You don't follow it into dark places. This detachment from thought brings immense clarity. You no longer say, "I am angry." You say, "Anger is arising." This small shift changes everything. Now you're no longer the anger, you are the witness. You can observe it, understand it, and let it go. This applies to all emotions: jealousy, fear, desire. The moment you become the observer, the emotion loses its grip. And as this awareness deepens, you become less reactive. Someone insults you and you don't explode. You watch. Someone praises you and you don't float. You watch. You live in balance. And balance is not indifference. It is maturity. You respond wisely, not compulsively. You act from clarity, not conditioning. Now imagine living with this awareness in every moment. You wake up and you don't rush. You feel the breath. You feel the body. You feel gratitude. You speak, and your words are not reactions. They come from presence. You eat, and you actually taste the food. You walk, and every step feels alive. You listen to people, not to respond but to understand. You work, not just for money or praise but with attention and depth. This is not idealism, it is the most practical way to live. Because it removes stress. It removes noise. It removes the burden of pretending. You become simple, real, light. And this lightness spreads to everything you touch. People around you feel safe because you are no longer trying to control or impress. You are just being. And being is the most powerful state. In being, there is no need to achieve, to compare, to chase. In being, everything that matters flows naturally. Love, joy, creativity, clarity. You don't seek peace. You are peace. In this space, you no longer see people as objects to use, fix, or hold on to. You see them as fellow travelers on this mysterious journey. Some stay for a while, some leave quickly. Some bring lessons, Some bring joy, but none of them are yours to own. They come, they go. You meet them fully, love them deeply, and let them move freely. That is true relationship. No chains, no expectations, just presence and freedom. And even when someone hurts you, you no longer hold grudges. You understand they acted from their own pain, their own unconsciousness. You see it, and you let it go. Forgiveness is no longer effort, it is understanding. And understanding makes the heart light. You stop living in resistance and you start living in harmony. Not because life became perfect, but because you stopped demanding that it should be. You became real. And in that realness, everything begins to heal. This is the invitation. To live fully, without clinging. To love deeply, without fear. To see clearly, without distortion. To act wisely, without compulsion. To meet each moment, not with memory, but with fresh eyes. When you do this, attachment fades, not because you forced it, but because it no longer makes sense. You don't need people or things to complete you. You are already whole. And from that wholeness, you share, you give, you flow, you live. Not as a seeker chasing pleasure or escape, but as an aware being resting in truth. That truth is not outside. It is in you, in this breath, in this step, in this now.